If we have an arc so when we name an arc is that portion of a circle that's contained between or within the interior of some kind of intercepted or some kind of intercepting angle. In this case, it's a central angle. But the way that we name an arc is we name an arc based on the endpoints of the segment or that portion of the arc. So this arc from A to C is designated as arc AC. But how can we distinguish that from the arc that extends on the remaining portion of the circle? Because it still has ends at A and C. So in order to identify the portion of an arc that extends in the other direction, we need to add a third point. And so if we were to set up, let's say this point D here, if we wanted to refer to the remaining portion of this arc, so the one that extends, in this case, counterclockwise from A, passes through D, and extends all the way to C. So it's still going to have the same points, endpoints A and C, but this time it passes through another point. And we can designate the point that it passes through to show that we're dealing with the other angle. And so this classification helps identify the distinction between two things: a minor arc versus a major arc. Okay, a minor arc is going to be an arc that is between 0 and 180 degrees. Okay, it's not going to include either of those because at 0 you don't have anything, and at 180 degrees you have a different classification. And then once you get to past 180 degrees, now when you're talking about, do you remember what we called, so this is the central angle. This portion, does anybody remember what the term was for that? Reflex angle. So once you get into the reflex angle, now you're talking about a major arc, and a major arc is more than 180 degrees, up to but not including 360. So make sure you can identify, when you're naming a minor arc, you always use 2 points. When you're naming a major arc, you always use 3 points. You have to identify the point at which it passes through. Okay, now what if you're dealing with a semicircle? So the semicircle is that third classification. And a semicircle is going to be the one when it's exactly equal to 180 degrees. So let's say we took this point here, and if we extended it all the way through point B, to that far side, so we call this point E. The semicircle from A to E, do you know which one I'm talking about? Which half of this circle I'm talking about? Right, so you have to identify. If we wanted this portion to the left of the diameter, you would put ADE, and if you wanted the portion that's to the right of it, ACE. So these are 2 different semicircles, and not just 2 different ways to name the same semicircle. They're 2 completely different semicircles. Okay, but regardless, when you're talking about a semicircle, again, you have to have 3 points because you have to be able to determine which of the halves you're dealing with. Okay, the last thing that I want to introduce here is that when you're dealing with measures of arcs, okay, so the measure of an arc, again, lowercase m for the measure of, and then just the symbol for the arc AC. But the measure of an arc is identical to the measure of its central or reflex angle. So in the minor arc, the measure of angle A, or the measure of arc AC, is equivalent to the measure of angle ABC. It's equal to its central angle. For a major arc, the measure of that arc is equal to its reflex angle. So angle ABC, but then it's this whole entire measure. And so it's also the same as 360 minus whatever the central angle is. And then what's the measure of a semicircle always going to be? 180. It's identical to the angle that's formed. Well, if you looked at angle ABE, ABE has a measure of 180 degrees, so that'll be the same. Okay. All right, questions regarding any of those classifications? All right, so the last thing here, and then I'll give you just a few minutes to relax, is when you're given a circle. So I had mentioned before, you can name a circle by its center point. So center B, or circle B, would identify this particular circle. There's no other circles with the center B, so you can leave it in that form. The other way, though, to name a circle is to use any 3 points that lie on the circle's circumference. So you could have called this circle ACE, circle DAE, again, any combination of the letters D, A, F, and E would work fine for naming that particular circle. Right, the one case where you cannot name a circle using its center point is if it is considered what's called a concentric circle, meaning it'll look like a bullseye. If you have these multiple circles, they all share the same center. They just have different radii or radius measures. Then you cannot name this based on the center. You have to pick points that lie on the circumference of each circle in order to determine it. Right, I'm going to